Hi, in today's lesson, we're going to be solving for specific variables. So solving for a specific variables just means given a formula or an equation to solve for a specific or chosen variable. And this is going to be a fundamental skill in algebra going forward. So let's start off with the distance formula. Here we have distance d equals r times t. R is your rate of speed, and t is going to be your time. So R is your rate of speed, and then t is your time. And D stands for distance. This is a formula that you will encounter over and over again in math and in physics. So we already know what D stands for, right? D equals R times T. But what if you were asked to solve for the rate instead? Well, to find rate in this equation, all you would do is divide both sides by T. So if you were to divide both sides by T, you would get R equals D divided by T. In other words, distance divided by time. Okay, all we did was isolate R by dividing both sides by T. And what if you were asked to solve for T instead? Well, in that case, you would divide both sides by R, or the rate of speed. This would give you, so T would equal D over R. In other words, distance divided by the rate of speed. Let's move on to our next example, where we have the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. In other words, perimeter of P equals twice the length plus twice the width. And it's asking, given the length of 25 and a width of 10, what is the perimeter? Well, in this case, all we would have to do is plug in our known values, right? So to get the perimeter, we would simply plug in 25 for L. Okay, so that's our length, and this is our width, plus 2 times the width, which is 10. Okay, 2 times 25 is 50. 2 times 10 is 20. This gives us a perimeter of 70. Okay, so P equals 70. But suppose instead of asking us to find the perimeter, we were asked to find the width instead. So here we have the exact same formula, P equals 2L plus 2W, and we were given a length of 32 and a perimeter of 100, and we were asked to find the width instead. In this case, it's much more efficient to solve for W first and then plug in the given values. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's actually solve for W in this formula. So to do that, we would subtract 2L from both sides. And we would get P minus, so that's 2L. We would get P minus 2L equals 2W. And to fully isolate W, we would divide both sides by 2. So let's do that. We're going to divide both sides by 2. The 2's cancel out, and we're just left with W equals P minus 2L over 2. Now, we can further simplify this. So we can simplify this down to P over 2 minus 2L over 2. The 2's here will cancel out, and we can just rewrite it as P over 2 minus L. So this is our formula for width. And now that we have a formula for width, we can finally plug in our given values. So here we have a length 32 and a perimeter of 100. So we can just plug in 100 for P divided by 2 minus a length of 32. 100 divided by 2 is 50. 50 minus 32 is going to be 18. And that is going to be our width. Now, just to make sure, let's go ahead and check our answer. And we can check our answer by simply using the original formula, right? P equals 2L plus 2W, to see if we get the answer of 100, which is the perimeter. So 2L, so L is going to be 32. And 2W, well, that's going to be 2 times 18. So 2 times 32 is going to be 64, plus 2 times 18 is 36. 64 plus 36 is going to give us the perimeter of 100, which means that our answer of 18 for the width is correct. Let's try one last problem. Here we have Zn plus Bn equals AX minus CD over A. And we are asked to solve for A. All right. That means we have to solve for A. And the way we do that, so the way you want to prepare yourself to solve this problem is to realize that what you want is all the terms that involve A on one side and everything else on the other side. The idea is that if you have all your terms on one side, you can use the distributive property to pull A out so that you can finally isolate it by dividing both sides by whatever is being multiplied by A. So here I'll show you what I mean. The first thing you want to do in this case to move everything that involve A on one side is you need to realize that you need to get rid of this fraction. So to do that, we multiply both sides by A. So let's do that. So we end up with A times the quantity of Zn plus Bn equals AX, so that A's will cancel out. So we're left with just AX minus CD. Now, in this instance, some people will want to divide both sides by the quantity of Zn plus Bn. But notice how when you do that, that doesn't give you an isolated value of A. Okay, because you also have A here on the other side. So in this case, the strategy should be to instead distribute A into the expression in the parentheses. That is going to allow you to move AX to the left side. And then what you'll have is all the expressions or all the terms involving A on one side and everything else on the other side. And that's exactly what you want. So let's go ahead and distribute A into the expression in the parentheses. So A times Zn is just AZn plus A times Bn is ABn. Okay. And then we have, on the right side, we have AX minus CD. Now we can finally move this AX term to the left side, which will give us a grouping of all the A terms. So we can move it by simply subtracting AX from both sides. And when you do that, you get AZN plus ABN minus AX equals negative CD. And at this point, the light bulb should go off in your head, because notice how we have three terms here that involve the variable A. And that means we can use the distributive property to pull A out of all these terms. Okay, think of it as the reverse of the distributive property, where instead of multiplying by a term with an expression inside the parentheses, you're dividing all the terms by A. So when you do that, when you pull out the A, in other words, when you divide each of these terms by a, you can rewrite this whole side as a times az, sorry, not az, zn plus bn minus x, right? All we did was use the distributive property to pull a out. We divided all these terms by a. So now we have a times the quantity of zn plus bn minus x, and then negative cd on the other side. Now we can finally isolate a, and we can do that by dividing both sides by the expression in the parentheses. So let's do that. Zn plus bn minus x. When we do that, the expression in the parentheses will cancel, leaving us with just a by itself equals negative cd over zn plus bn minus x. And now we have isolated a, and that is what a is equal to.